Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Burnt Pancakes Podcast. I am your host, Katie Fensky, and I'm here to remind moms that everyone burns their first pancake. Today, we have on an amazing guest. Her name's Sarah Lorente, and she is a mom of 5 and the editor of a magazine called The Mothering Journal. I loved this conversation with her because not only did she share things about motherhood and her journey, but also about what inspired her to start her amazing magazine. I have several subscriptions, editions, and I just love when they come in the mail because they are beautiful, they are inspiring, and I just think it's such an important thing she's putting out into this world. So I think you're going to love to hear about her journey and how she became an editor of a magazine as a mom. So please enjoy. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited because we chatted on the phone before this and it was like so easy to talk to you. So I know this is going to be a really, really fun recording.
Yes. Well, I love to talk, so this is very easy for me.
Up your alley. Why don't you start by introducing yourself and just tell us how many kids you have, when you became a mom, that stuff.
Yeah. I have 5 children, and I feel like I always tell people that I have the gamut of age of the whole age group because my oldest is 18, almost 19, and my youngest is 5, almost 6.
Oh my gosh.
So when I was actually getting ready to give birth with my last, we were taking our son out for his 13th birthday, and I just thought,
my gosh.
Like I'm doing the beginning of teenage years and newborn stage all at the same time.
Wow.
So that felt a little crazy, but it was beautiful. I became a mom unexpectedly when I was 24. And it's been kind of a crazy journey. I probably wouldn't recommend doing it the way that I did it, but there's redemption, Yep. And so I've got 5 kiddos now, 3 boys and 2 girls. And I feel like every stage has been beautiful. There's
I love that.
There's hard moments. Some of my favorite things have been seeing the things about the teenage years proven wrong, because everyone used to just be like, oh, just
it's going to be so hard. Oh, they're so awful.
Yeah. Wait till they become a teenager, or I can't wait till they're a teenager to see that. And I'm like, I don't think I want to believe any of that.
Yeah. I don't have to buy into that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a message that I think the world dishes to us as moms, and we can either receive it or just reject it. And so I feel like I rejected it. And now I have 3 teenagers, and they're my best friends. They're so fun. Their ability just to sit and actually have fun. You're still parenting very much so, but those just connections, and even teaching them okay. Yeah. I just talked with my daughter the other day, you're 14 and, I want you to also be a friend to me. So pouring into my life and asking me how I'm doing and all those types of things. And, it's beautiful.
Yes. I love that. Cause so many people say wait till middle school, but I am finding, so my oldest is 10 now, and I'm finding that to be so fun. As they're getting older, I thought, I'm going to miss these babies. I love the baby stage. Now I'm I loved how cute they were, but I'm happy we're done with that. And I love how we're moving into these older kids. And there's attitude and there's this, but
yeah, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but I'm the same as you, where I always thought I need a baby in my arms always. I always said I would have babies until I couldn't have babies anymore. And now I'm I see other people's babies and I'm oh, I know because that doesn't look fun anymore. I'm not let me please smell your newborn, nothing, I'm good. Yes.
Totally. My husband and I went on a hike. My mom took the boys. We went on a solo hike, but it was one we had done before with one in this little carrier. One was probably 3 or 4 years old. So my husband had to carry him half the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, remember that hike? They were so cute. I still look at those pictures. I'm they're so cute, but I'm this is so nice. It's so nice that they're older. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the questions I had later on the list was what
Yeah.
season of motherhood was the most challenging? So that's like a good topic right now, since you're kind of in every season right now.
Yeah, actually. Gosh, I feel like I was, pondering, thinking about this. And I wish I could say like I had this like answer, but I feel like it's kind of like birth, where they always say like you'll forget the
You
pain,
do.
and it's kind of like that's how I feel. I feel like I
Uh-huh.
have amnesia. Not that we didn't have really hard moments. I think probably the beginning stages of becoming a mom were my hardest. And it wasn't because of my children, it was because of me. The expectations I put on myself,
Me
I
too.
suffered from like legit mom guilt it was like every single night, like crying myself to sleep, reminding myself everything wrong I did that day. And that I think stole so much from that season from me, and just my ability to really like cherish the moments. So
Uh,
that was probably, looking back, probably my hardest, but it was also where I saw the greatest breakthrough in my life. So I'm kind of like, oh gosh, how do you?
I needed to go through it, but
Yes.
yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like you were speaking exactly what I felt. Like it was so hard, and I was so hard on myself that I didn't really enjoy it, because I just thought I'm a woman, like I should know how to be a mom, and I had no clue what I was doing. The hardest was my first, and I
Yeah.
just yeah, it
Yeah.
was challenging.
Yeah. I feel like everyone asks us, like, you have 5 kids. Like, what was the biggest jump? Like, what was the hardest moment?
The hardest transition.
3, and I'm like, well, going from none to one is
Same.
definitely the hardest. Like, my life is about me. I get all of
Mhm.
my choices. I get to do whatever I want, to like all of a sudden caring for this like little baby. Like, I don't know how to keep it alive. Like, I mean, it's just that for me was
That one,
absolutely.
it rocked my world. You're right, because we were totally selfish before.
Yeah.
And then to know like, wait, I can't just pick up and go to the store so easily. I have to get them in the carrier. I have to do this. I just felt like I kind of like lost part of my life. Like this is so different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the third, it was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of them, but
Yeah.
we could,
Get in the
we could
car.
handle
We're
this.
leaving. You don't have your shoes. That's fine. We're still going to the grocery store.
There was a day that I went to the park and 2 of my kids didn't have shoes. And I'm like, what's going on here? As a first time mom, I would have been like, I'm such a failure. And as this, I was like, okay, well, we just won't go to the grocery store afterwards. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
learn to relax a little bit.
Yeah. I always tell my first time mom friends, where I'm like, I promise you won't be the same mom with the second or third one. Like it won't be like this. I
Yes.
remember, I think it was my fourth, and he hated shoes and socks, hated them. So we were walking through Costco, and it was winter, and he's like bundled up, jacket, but he pulled off his socks and shoes in the car. And I'm like, well, I have to go to
Not
Costco. We
fighting it.
have to eat.
Mhm.
And this grandma came up to me, and she was like, oh, like talking to my son, but very much so scolding me,
Yeah.
like, oh, you poor thing. Like, you must be so cold, this whole thing. And I just very lovingly looked at her, and I was like, he's my fourth and I haven't killed one yet. It's like, I just don't, it's not that I don't care, because I do care, but you just learn what mountains you're going to die on and which ones you're just
Yeah.
going to.
He chose that. That's with my first, he loved being barefoot at the park. And at the time we were living in LA, and this nanny came up to me and was like, oh, your son's barefoot. And I'm like, wait, is that bad? I didn't know that was a bad thing.
It is a
He could
park.
he could step on glass. And I was like, didn't even think of that. But I'm like, he likes being barefoot. He's fine. But everything you do with the first is like, am I doing this wrong? Am I supposed to be doing that? Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot.
absolutely. And then you end up getting advice from a bunch of other first-time moms, instead of like going to like the generations that have gone before us and be like, just tell me it's going to be okay. And they're like, oh,
Right.
let me tell you how bad it used to be. You're going to be fine. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think going back to like forgetting how hard it was, I used to, when I was in it, I would be like, Mom, you never told me it was like this. You made our childhood look so fun and easy. You looked like you loved being a mom all the time. And she's like, well, it was hard, but it was 30 years ago. And I'm like, okay, I hope that's how I feel. Cause I do look back and I'm like, it was hard, but it
Yeah,
wasn't as bad as it was in the moment, like
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, I've been able to kind of like let that go a little bit. Same with
Yeah.
potty training. I tell all these moms that I help with potty training all the time. I'm like, you're in it right now and it feels like it's consuming your life. In a year from now, you're going to forget that you even had to pack diapers. It's going to feel so great.
Yes. Well, and I feel like it's just that process with all things, like going
Mm.
back to my teenagers, like they'd probably be mortified that I would talk about this, but like when they're going through puberty, like they need us as moms to remind them this is a blip on the radar. Like you don't feel like yourself right now, but you're gonna feel like yourself again. Yes, you're crying and you don't know why you're crying. You're mad. You don't know why you're mad. Just relax, And I think there's just those times where we just have to just look at the bigger picture. But obviously it's hard when you're in the
Yeah.
moment. Like,
Oh my
I
God.
don't
I'm hitting you up when mine are we're close. 10 is like almost preteen,
okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So what advice do you have for all these teen moms? So it's just a blip. Like do they get crazy mood swings that you're like, where did that come from?
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, my boys more than my girl.
Really?
And maybe it's just because my expectation was she would be like that, they wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like my oldest struggled the most for like trying to figure out like where did I go? Like
Mm.
I was this boy this way, and then all of a sudden, almost overnight, something changed.
Yeah.
I think in his life changed. His hormones were just changing,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
was going crazy on the inside. And I think for me, just realizing, and what I would tell other teen moms is just like our job in these teenage years is not to make them okay. It's just to remind them it like they're still there, like that they are going to emerge this like still very amazing version of themselves. But like it's just really easy. It's really easy to think, even, after you have a baby and you're like, am I ever going to feel the same again? And you're crying and you don't know why you're crying. And your body is completely different. And you're like, what did I just do? What did I just go through?
Yes.
And then they're 3 and you're like, oh, here
I
I
got through
am.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like it's the same thing with teenagers, and really just like instilling in them who they are, not who they are not,
Mm-hmm.
and just learning how to be like that safe place, even when they make dumb choices, even, it's like I've got an
They're
11-year-old
going
right.
to.
Yes. And I'm like, buddy, oh, that's what you did at school. Awesome. I love that for you. Can we figure out how to not make that choice again?
Yes.
But also like not blowing it so far out of proportion that they don't feel safe to completely fail at
Yeah.
home. I want them to fail at home. I want them to make their biggest mistakes under my roof, because I know that I can love them through it rather than condemn them through it.
Yeah. And I noticed my oldest one, I feel like I lecture him way too much. Like
Mhm.
he's very impulsive. So he makes a lot of those choices where you're like, oh my gosh, like, do you see how you just hurt your brother? What were you? I don't know. I don't know
I don't
why.
know what I was thinking. And that's the truth. They
Yeah.
actually don't know what they're thinking.
Gosh.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I teach you to think ahead of time? Oh God. But then I'll like lecture and lecture. I don't let it go. And I'm sure he's just like, Mom, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done with that.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel like I'll catch myself mid lecture being like, I'm pretty sure they've completely checked out
Tune me out. Yeah.
like 5 minutes ago. I think they get the point.
Yep.
And now the oldest ones have already figured out. They're like, Mom, you're repeating yourself. And like, as much as I want to be angry that you just said that, okay, thank you.
Thank you. He's
Thank
really
you.
good at going, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, you don't even get it.
I know.
They just
Yeah.
take it
I'm
over.
like, what are you sorry for? Come on,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Show me that you're sorry. Sound like you're sorry. So I heard another teen mom say not to take anything personal. Like they're going to say things to you that they really don't mean. But
Yeah.
do you feel that too? Do you see that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's like, it's hard. I mean, I feel like that's what family is. It's that safe place, where sometimes it's like, well, I'm just really angry about all of these other things. And so, yeah, I'm going to lash out at you because you're safe. Or they've just heard about whether it's just messaging in the world, whether, because I think our kids hear just as much as we hear
Yeah.
that they're supposed to pull away from us. They're supposed to, like, I'm always reminding, especially my oldest, when he's like, I need to figure out my life. I need to move out. I need to this, I need to that. And I'm like, do you realize that this, especially in other countries, like this is not a thing. Like this is an American thing where you, at 18, you're like figuring out what you're supposed to do with the rest
You're
of your
now an
life.
adult.
Yeah. I'm like, let's just slow down. Let's realize like you could live at home and save a lot of money and then like buy a house, get married, like all of those different pieces. But even just like back to Old Testament, like they didn't do that. They weren't like, oh, okay. They actually stayed with family, So it's just like that whole separation of everything. And I honestly don't remember what your question was. So sorry about that. Oh,
Oh,
personal.
you're good. Good.
But I feel like there's been moments, for sure that they've heard like, oh, I'm going to tell my mom that, I think I only ever had one moment where my kid was like, I hate you. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to handle this right now. And as much as I wish I could believe and be like, oh, don't take it personal, I actually think it's okay that we let our kids understand the weight of their words.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm a big enough adult to like not tell you I hate you back. But there's also that like, I'm a person. And it's like I tell my youngest all the time, I'm like, I'm your mom, I'm not your slave. Like I'm not here to make your life happen for you. I'm not here to like make your wildest dreams come true. I'm a person and this is how we're going to do it together. So I'm not afraid to let my kids know, like, I'm not going to take it personal. I'm not going to hold it against you. I actually won't. I'll make the commitment that I won't hold offense, but I also can not promise that I won't take it personal. Like you just told me something very horrible. Like, and there's weight to our words. Like I don't think our kids, like there's grace always, but I feel like there's also that piece of just like, I'm not just the pass through for their life, where it's like, no, I'm a person and we have to respect one another. Like that's a very important thing. And I think that's where teens, kids in general, they kind of get real crazy, real big because there is a boundary of like, no, like this just isn't normal. It's not normal. It's like I have a 5-year-old and she's like a screamer, never had a scream before.
Yes, I have one of those. Yep.
I thought I saw all the personalities until her. I was like,
and the door slamming. He's a door slammer too.
Stomping of the foot. Yeah, never had done any of those things. And even now I'm having these conversations where I'm like, could you imagine if mom reacted like that? Like, do you want me to how would it feel to you if I slammed the door and yelled, fine, every single time you didn't do something I wanted you to do? Yeah. And she's like, awful. And I'd probably be afraid. And so I had to start like reflecting back to her when she started yelling or slamming a door, this or that. I'm like, okay, do you want me to be afraid of you? You've let me know it causes you fear. Do you want me to, is this what you're like trying to do? And she's like, no, it's just really hard. And I'm like, okay, I get it. It's hard for me too, but anyway, it's kind of just teaching them how to be human. We're human,
Gosh. And like each opportunity is a learning experience for ourselves. Cause I have blown up before and then I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. That's not how I should have reacted. But each one you learn, I learned to start saying, gosh, what you said it hurt my feelings. That was like really mean of you. It didn't feel good. And they're like, oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. When you became a mom, were you a working mom?
I was. Yeah.
How was that?
Horrible. Yeah.
That's pretty much how I described it for myself. Like I never in my life thought I would have to work and be a mom. Like I always thought I'm going to be a mom. Like that's what I'm going to be. And then having to go back to work. I was in such denial that I had to go back that I didn't start looking for a daycare till 2 weeks before.
Goodness.
Yeah. And of course there's no openings anywhere. I was just like, no, I'm not going to have to go back. I'm not going to. And then I'm like, I have to go back.
This is actually happening. Yeah.
It was hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I was not.
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
What did you do when you first had kids?
I think it doesn't help that I hated my job. I was inside sales for an IT company. So I love the people I worked with, and I love people. So I did that part of it really well, but I hate technology. I like speeds and feeds and so I couldn't retain any of it. So I was constantly feeling like I'm probably actually not very good at this, And so then I'd be at work knowing that I wanted just to be with my kids, and also not feeling like I was like doing amazing at my job. And then I'd be at home worried that I wasn't doing amazing at my job, So it's just this constant, like my heart, my head was never where my body actually was. So
same. Like I just felt like I'm not giving my all at work. And then when I'm at home, it's like, I only get you for 2 hours, 3 hours a day. And then you're going to bed and I'm waking you up at 5:30 in the morning to get off to work. I did not enjoy that. But now you are the editor of a journal for moms. Let's hear the backstory of how that came to be, because side note, I have multiple subscriptions and absolutely love it. So I want to know how you started it.
Yeah. So some people are like, I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to that. This was not on my radar ever.
Which is so surprising because I see it and I think, oh, she was born to do this. This is her calling.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. Maybe it was hidden somewhere there that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I maybe in 2020 started, I've always done music. And so writing and singing, that whole piece was the creative outlet for my voice. And then I wrote a book, and that was just like my story, my testimony. And I've always loved to write. So from that aspect, I'm like, oh, I can see kind of, but it literally just came in a moment where I was just having my quiet time in the morning. And I just felt like God literally was like, I want you to start a magazine. And I was like, what? Like, and I literally,
did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. And I laughed. I was like, of course you do. Like, there literally could not be someone more underqualified, which I love that piece of the story, but also hate that piece of the story, because I feel like, oh, if I knew what to do, I'd be building it this certain way. But I think that the reason he trusted me with it is because he knew I'd be reliant on him to build it the way he wanted it. And so very quickly I was like, okay, I'm in. And he's like, great. I want it to be called Mothering Journal. Like, it was like, it's going to be called.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And this is like what it will represent in the earth. This is how it's going to gather moms. This is how, like, the full, like, it wasn't like, here's a little piece of it. It was like, here's blueprints to run with.
Do it.
And I was like, okay, all right, well, here we go. And so I just thought, oh, I went online, honestly, and I was like, how much does it cost to print like a 12 page, like not even a full, 8.5 by 11. Like, I was like, I looked at the price. I was like, oh, I could do that. I could gather a couple of friends and sure, I'll do a magazine, and very quickly it was like, no, it was not supposed to be. It was supposed to be a place for all moms, like single moms, the blended family moms, the empty nester moms, the working moms, the uninspired. I was like, oh, this is a lot bigger
than everyone.
Yeah. And that it was supposed to truly be encompassing of mothering rather than like the homeschool mom, this, like we fragment ourselves out, where I feel like, well, but we're not supposed to be fragmented. We're still this whole being.
Well, they always say niche down. You're like, no, we're going to take it all.
Yeah. And it's honestly terrible for marketing because it's that piece of just like, well, okay, great. I get you're going after all of it, but what's really your key market? And you're like,
all of
no,
them,
moms,
all
like,
moms, grandmas, stepmoms,
yeah,
all of them.
yeah. It's like, oh, anyway, all of the things we're fighting up against. But so I just felt like, oh, this is a lot bigger than I think it's going to be. And I was like, this is bigger than my friends, and one by one, literally like God just connected me
The
with
right people.
every single writer. And some of them were crazy. Some of them were literally people that I had never met, but we ran in similar circles.
Okay.
And so we would follow each other on Instagram. And one woman like literally felt like God said, like her post and I'll show you what I do. Wow. Or I'll show you,
Yeah.
And like, okay, liked my post. The next day I felt like he was like, I want you to reach out to her and see if she wants to write for the magazine, and she had just decided in faith to like step into writing for the first, like this, maybe it was a rekindled thing in her own life, and it just like story after story of like, I at this point I could write a book of how I got all of the writers that are writing for the magazine now. So it's just been an incredible faith journey, honestly, of like, if we lay down our ideas of how it's supposed to be and all of the tools and all of the equipping we feel like we're supposed to have, and actually put faith and trust that God wants these dreams that are inside of us even more than we want these dreams inside of us to come to light,
Yeah.
So
yeah. I feel like that with the podcast, because it was kind of like it just came out of my mouth that I'm like, I just want to help moms. But I was like, I don't really know what it is. But then there were like little nuggets that came together, like this little piece, this person. And yeah, there was some inspiration in there.
Yeah. Really cool. So cool.
So do you take submissions for writing, or do you have a set of writers for the magazine?
Yeah. So currently where we're at is we have 20-ish set writers, but I always tell people, because people will write in and be like, do you take submissions? Can I write for your magazine? And my first question is, have you ever read our magazine? Or did you just see it on Instagram? So I always tell people, like, just order one and make sure you could even see your voice in it. Yeah. And then after that, I'm always, I always just take, I love reading other people's stories too. So I'm like, yes, send me your stuff, and if it fits, great. If not, then we had this little blip in one another's lives and you got to share your story with me. And so, yeah.
One of my favorite things I did, so I started a blog at the very beginning of this Burnt Pancakes journey, and I just wrote some of my own, like, I am not a trained writer, but I was like, I just need to put some of my stories out. And I remember writing one about how I felt when my son lost his first tooth, and like what that first tooth felt like when he was getting it and he was a baby and he was cranky and I was his new mom, and then seeing it out of his mouth was like, so I just wrote something about that, and it was so therapeutic for me just to like get those stories out and just remember what I was like as that new mom. It was
Well, I think that's the beauty even of the magazine, is like, there's so much out there right now that's telling us how to be moms, but there's no place just to share our stories, so it's like, we are at the very bottom line, where it's like we're coming in with a magazine, but the heart is actually to bring connection. So what I would love in the next year or so is to do these mothering journal events across the United States, where moms are actually coming together. And we had our first one, I don't remember, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I can't remember the date. Like, my life is.
I remember seeing videos of it. I'm like, when are they coming to California?
Yeah. And it was this like just beautiful time of, and people would ask like, well, who's the guest speaker? Who's going to be there? And I'm like, the guest of honor is literally the mom sitting across the table from you. But we're so in this mode of like, I have to receive from the expert, or, instead of like our greatest strength is in one another, you know, and we don't need, I mean, not that I'm against resources, not that I'm against any of that, you know, but there's also that piece of just like hearing, like I never would have thought about, oh, I mean, my youngest daughter just lost her first tooth, and I never would have thought about it in that way. But I feel like we gain these little bits of perspective and this understanding for one another, but also like, oh, I see motherhood through a different lens. And I think if we could just honestly be more connected in that way, it would inspire so many more to run after the things that are in their heart, you know. But I think we're constantly in this mode of like, I haven't arrived yet. I need to learn more. So I'll just keep learning instead of just like, I'm just going to get together with 10 moms in my area and just hear, you know.
So, and I tell moms too, when I'm helping with potty training, like 99% of the time they know what to do. And they're like, well, I was thinking about trying this, but I wasn't sure. I'm like, trust your gut. That's exactly what you trust your gut. But they just need someone to say like, yes, you're right. You know, they're so worried about getting it wrong. Oh, so hard. And I love too that like I can read stories from moms that have babies and brings me back, or I can read stories from moms with teenagers and go, oh, that's what I have to look forward to. Like there's just such a gamut of things. Okay. Do you have a photographer, or because your pictures in here are stunning? And I'm like, I just want to like sit this on my countertop or on my table because they're so beautiful. Do you have a photographer or?
So kind of where we're at right now is a lot of the artwork is from our moms or artists, and we're slowly starting to incorporate our own, you know, it's like with a startup, you're just like, okay, I could figure out how to reinvent the wheel 10 times over, or sometimes you're like, here's launch
how to get
date,
it out.
and we're just getting it out. So now we're kind of like, all right, we're pulling back stock images. We're pulling back all of those things and pressing into, okay, this needs to have the brand of Mothering Journal that's ours, every piece of it, every part of it. So that's kind of the mixture that currently is.
Love it. Okay. So, and then why in this digital world, why did you decide to go back to a paper magazine?
Yeah. I think just to make it harder on myself. I'm just kidding. I have more people going, you are just missing it. And I'm like, that's okay.
No,
That's
but look
fine.
I can hold it. I can hold
Yes.
it. I'm still a book person. I cannot get used to the digital book.
No,
And I will say when it came in the mail, it like took me back to my 20s where I was like, remember when you used to subscribe to a magazine and it would come and you're like, yes, it's here. I felt that. And I was like, I have not felt getting a magazine in the mail in years.
Yeah, no. And that's how, I mean, again, it's like, I had this picture in my mind where I was like, oh, our kids are actually growing up, like seeing us and seeing the backside of our phones, you know, and I could be reading an article on how to be the best mom ever to my kids. And I had this like, but to them, I'm just disconnected, you know, and now they're either left to compete with my phone. So their behavior is poor because they're like in competition mode, or they're, you know, especially as they get older, just being like, oh, mom's on her phone, you know, and little kids will interrupt. They'll behave over the top of it. Where I started seeing my biggest, like, you know, bummer of a moment was I was like, oh, my older ones just walk in and they'd see me on my phone and they're like, mom's checked out. I'm not even going to try to press in, you know? And I think that's kind of the sad part of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
You know,
I've had my kids say, Mom, get off your phone. And I'm like, oh, yikes. Like, yeah, you guys are right.
Yeah, no,
and
it's so true.
That. Yeah.
I know. So I just felt like, you know what? There's a piece of, you know, if I'm reading a book, my kids always interrupt me, right, wrong,
right.
You know, and I just, and I can't retain information that I read off of my phone. Like, I don't know why. It's just that I love a book. I love something in my hands. I'm a, you know, tactile.
Feel how far I am into it, dog ear it when I come back. Yes.
Yeah. And I just feel like there's that piece of, there is as we advance in technology, there is a part of each one of us that remember how it felt to check the mail and have a magazine in it, or where it almost feels nostalgic, but I think it's actually very grounding of like, we are to have things to hold on to. This is why people like to go outside and play, or all of these, I think that's why so many people are like rethinking how they want to set up their lives. Because it's gone so fast. Like the things that my kids are walking in now versus what my older one, I'm like, so much has changed in 15 years. It is insane. So I have that piece inside of me that's like, I want my kid, and we're working on building it up. The whole piece is, there's supposed to be a whole section for kids in the back. And right now it's just like, there's every other month, there's like a craft for kids for you to do with your kid, or like a recipe. Because I want my daughter to, because she's probably the only one, she's 5, 6. I want her to be excited for mom to get the mothering journal in the magazine, in the mailbox as well. Where it's not just for me. It's not, she knows when this comes, or our kids, they're like, oh, there's going to be something for mom and I to connect on as well. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Anyway,
I thought it would make the best gift, not for like a new mom, but for a mom who's celebrating like the first birthday of their baby. Yeah. Like that first birthday is like, we've made it a year, and you like now have a little bit under your belt to like, oh, now I know. Like a new mom reading these stories, I don't know. They probably aren't there yet, like a brand new mom, but like I made it through that first year. This would be such a fun gift, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, and I feel like there's even, we have 2 moms, one mom that's writing it's a column called In the Waiting. And it was her whole journey with infertility, and just
awesome.
How, because it's like, I think that's a mom too.
Yeah,
she's just not holding her baby yet. She's actually just holding the promise, and creating space for that, as well as we have a mom who's writing for postpartum, because she went through a terrible, terrible postpartum season for years. And so now she's just like, that's her thing. She's so passionate about
that. And then to read that as a new mom and know like, okay, there isn't anything wrong with me. Other people have felt this way, because I kind of felt alone. Like, why do I feel this way? Why am I having such a hard time? Not knowing like we all were in the same boat. We just didn't really say anything because.
Well, and I feel like I feel like there's that piece too. And this is that piece of the magazine is like, I didn't go through postpartum depression, but I know I still read about it, because I want to learn how to be a better friend and how to show up for my friends that are going through it. We've had multiple moms write about their miscarriages and losing their babies. And so much of that is, yes, to connect to the one that is also lost, or is in that same space, but it's to teach us empathy, like how I think so many moms or women, people, we'll just say people, don't know how to show up for one another. And it's not that we don't want to show up, we just don't know how to show up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we just don't do anything, which is worse, So it's actually to teach like, oh, if I am around, all of these other moms, and I haven't lived their journey, I'm actually reading something every single month, teaching me how to show up for other women in a completely different way, Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Love it. Love it. Would you consider this like your 7th baby? But you said you had 6, right?
I have
5. This is your 6th baby. Is it your 6th baby?
Well, my husband, I like to joke, he's my 6th.
No. So you're 7th.
Yeah, I would probably say, it's like, as with everything, where I'm actually really learning, as much as, people are like, oh, this is your passion project. I'm like, no, I think this is just, it is what it is. I mean, obviously I'm very passionate about it, but I've had to like really pull back. Like, I think I just went all in, where I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And slowly but surely it started like stealing these moments and in my life. And so even this last week, I've had to be like, okay, like I have to trust that it's going to be what it's supposed to be. And I still need to, put in priority my own life, so.
Such a balance. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
So I
letting
would
motherhood
say,
consume us, but always have like something for ourselves. Yeah.
yeah.
Such a
Yeah.
balance. Well, okay. If people wanted to get your magazine, where did they go? I will put all of the links in the show notes, but let us know where we can find you.
So the best way is to just subscribe online, and that it's themotheringjournal.com. And then we have a 1-month subscription. We have a 3-month subscription, 6-month, 1 year. So that's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Perfect. And it makes such a great gift. So I would definitely recommend
Yes,
that.
we have gifting options, because I think half of everyone that subscribes is like, I need this for, or a mom will subscribe and then she's like, I need all of my daughters to have this, or
yeah. And it's like the gift that keeps on giving, like, oh, it's not just one thing, you get a couple months of this. So
yes,
so nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was such a great conversation, and I am like so proud of what you are putting out into this world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to just continuing the conversation.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much to Sarah for coming on this episode. I really, really enjoyed chatting with her. And if you are interested in getting her magazine, please take a look at the description below so that you can subscribe, give it as a gift. I already have a few people in mind that I'm going to gift this to, but it's definitely worth grabbing a copy of. So I hope you are all enjoying the podcast. If you love it as much as I love making it, then please subscribe, leave me a review. That helps push out the podcast to more moms that need to hear that everyone is burning their first pancake. So until next week, I want to remind you to just keep flipping.